Right, here is an unpleasant picture of me to start off this video. Let me just get my seat adjusted and cancel my left signal. I'm also going to adjust the exposure so that we can see more of the outside and less of me. And I'm just going to illustrate how my eyes are moving around as I drive. So nothing's coming up behind or close enough in front for me to have needed to help people adjust their planning by attracting their attention with a right signal for moving off there. I've glanced in my left mirror. I'm looking at the moving cars coming towards me. I'm looking down at the curb line. I'm reading it, physically scanning with my eyes along to see where the gaps are for road junctions, such as the markings. Same here with some more white markings, covering the brake in case anything moves out. We've got strong sun today, so I can rely on shadows helping me know if something's coming from a position that I can't directly see. I'm looking at the curb again because I've got no activity in front, reading the surface of the road, judging where the tyres of my car are going to go, looking for holes, puddles, debris, changes in shadow patterns, reading the curb again, centre mirror, now looking ahead, now looking over to that side road and that one, covering mirror, thinking about the gear, looking at the curb line here, both sides of the road with the bollards in the middle, centre mirror, changing down to gear 2, slowing to a stop. I've got a rough impression of what the curb line is on the left and the right on the roundabout. Now I'm looking at them both again. Granite curb that side that can do a lot of damage to tyres, moulded curb the other side, looking at the curb down on this corner again at the windowsill using my reference dots, looking at the curb and all the muddied clumped leaves that are gathered at the side, looking at the puddle on the road, looking at the white line marking the right hand side of the road, nothing happening with pedestrians or the button box being pressed, looking at the slippery material on the side of the road, want to stay away from that, looking at the debris in the gutter on my side of the road, lining it up with the corner of the window. I can afford to get quite close if necessary. Let me show you. I've got that little pause symbol. I could go as close as this, but we can start to hear the loose material rattling around in the wheel arches, so I've probably only got about that much space at that point. But I could go if necessary, if there was more activity on that side, as close as that. I've glanced down at that windowsill again just to make sure that the corners of the curbs, which jut out a little bit more, aren't going to catch my tyres, especially when you've got these large trees that have been here for decades right up against the curb, where the dual carriageway, well, it's not strictly a dual carriageway because it's not laid out for traffic flow in both directions on each side of this grass, but it was designed that way when the buildings went up. There was a tree very close to the edge like we've got here, which had actually deformed the curb line quite a lot. There it hasn't had such a bad effect because cars turning left around the tree have actually crushed the curbstones down, so they wouldn't do any significant damage to tyres or wheels. Remember, your tyre is for gripping the road surface so that you can stop and, less importantly, speed up as aspects of keeping yourself safe as much as possible. But also your leading end of the car is the one that's got the wheels on that will do the steering, change the position of the car, change the direction of the car, and therefore you want to keep the steering ability in as good condition as possible. And your tyres are pneumatic to give you a comfortable and quiet ride, so they're full of air and therefore can be punctured. And if you strike or graze the wall of the tyre against something very rough or very sharp, or that juts out into the road, or you squash your air-filled tyre against something with all the weight of the car at any kind of speed, even walking pace, then that might squash the air flat. It increases the pressure of the air in other parts of the tyre, and because you've flattened the wall of the tyre, it's the same as if you have a plastic bag of some sort and you squash it flat enough, you will split the bag and all the air comes out, and then your tyre doesn't do any good at giving you a comfortable ride, or for that matter allowing you to control the steering. The steering and pneumatic tyres are designed to all work together. It's not just about comfort, it's about being able to maintain a grip on the road surface, and that surface has to be free of debris, ideally not damp or have any water on it at least. So I'm just checking behind and checking these pedestrians. Now I'm looking down at the curb line again. Now I'm looking at the truck on the right, looking at those pedestrians, especially the kid on the scooter. Checking the curb line again, looking out for metal parts of the curb edge where you might have a gully, or physically flat on the road you might have a metal drain cover, inspection cover like we've got there in the middle and there. Those are going to be more slippery as well, so ideally I want to position my car to straddle those, because I wouldn't be able to change my direction as efficiently. There's a bigger chance of slip, in other words, the car just carrying on in a straight line, and I wouldn't be able to brake or speed up as efficiently because the gripping surface of the tyre wouldn't be able to maintain as much friction, coefficient of friction. And that's why road traffic accident investigators who are brought in by the police or the Crown Prosecution Service if somebody's been seriously injured or killed, they use relatively simple methods to be able to determine who struck who, at what speed, at what angle, and they might even go to the site and look at what the sight lines were at a particular time of day, when the sun was in the sky in a certain position, or clouds were in certain positions, hedges had just been trimmed or not trimmed. Same goes for trees. Road signs may have been partially knocked over and are blocking the view. Temporary traffic signs for roadworks may have been put up and caused extra difficulty in being able to see clearly when somebody was coming or a pedestrian was standing at the side of the road. So there's a lot of factors to consider, but not an inordinate number, not more than 20, let's say. So an experienced road traffic accident investigator should be able to determine what was the causal factor that first kicked off the collision or the incident where somebody lost control of their vehicle and hit something or somebody else. And there's an interesting, very brief, but I think quite interesting for anybody that's slightly technically minded, interesting blog post on my news page on the website. If you just search from the homepage for the word accident or crash or investigator, I think you'll probably find it. It was sometime in the last 6 months. I went to a talk. It's just simple physics about what happens with energy transfer when one moving object hits another moving object or a stationary object. Does it collapse and crush, or does it push that other object away from it if it's if it itself is heavy and the object it hits is quite light? So checking my mirrors, looking at the markings, looking at the condition of the road, assessing the grip, looking at the slope of the road across its surface as well, because that's going to affect my grip if I'm steering left or right. Looking at the 5 hazard lines leading up to the end of the road, nobody around. That pedestrian over there wouldn't even notice if I put a right signal on. So there's a very unusual circumstance where approaching the junction, I'd made an assessment of what's behind, I've made an assessment nice and wide of what's in front, and only seen one living thing and moving thing, and she wouldn't have seen, she was looking down the pavement anyway, talking on her phone, she wouldn't have seen flashing amber lights that are on the right hand side of the car. So there's no point signalling. The best position for the hands to be is controlling the direction of the car on the steering wheel. The best position, we'll come on to that later, the best position for the feet to be are left foot nice and relaxed, because we've got nothing visible here that's going to make me lose a lot of speed and therefore need to change out of gear 4. And the right foot if it's not actually pressing the gas, which it isn't now, it should be over the brake pedal, so that I'm ready if something changes suddenly to lose speed. Clutch up before we steer, having a good look around, using all the bits of glass available to me, the reflective ones and the ones I can see through. Reducing speed, looking through the hedges and bushes, now building speed up again. Oh dear, it's almost time to go out again. It's my lesson at 12, never mind. I think it's 5 hours on the trot. And we've got a nice bit of slalom parking to do here, getting up onto the drive. So I'll leave the camera running. I've checked all around. I'm going very slowly because my roof pillar, so-called C pillar, this is the A pillar where the seatbelt comes from, that's the B pillar, and the C pillar is the fat one at the back, which blocks a lot of my vision. So I'm going very slowly so that I can make sure, even though there's nothing moving behind me, just two stationary dark coloured cars on the drive, I've got plenty of time to remember where things were, as well as reinterpreting by correlating what I'm seeing in that mirror with what limited view I've got over there, not forgetting this corner. So I'm doing a sort of S-shaped motion. Bleeping like that's fine, I can see that there's still space. I don't want a camera that's showing me what's changing behind, or I'd be tempted to look at that. Lots of cars do have them, but I'd rather just have the acoustic signals so that I can keep my eyes outside the car. So I'm still maintaining a good half a metre over there. I'm not getting too close to this wall over here. I'm going back diagonally. Let's tuck it in a bit closer to the house. Just losing sight of my kitchen door, so we'll start straightening up. Nobody needs to get in that side, so we can go quite close to the wall. And it means that if my neighbour comes and parks on the drive, there's plenty of space for them. The bin is now getting quite close to the corner, so we're now getting some orange, but there's still about 9 or 10 inches there. And you can see how the pattern changes as we go past the bin. It would go red and the bleeping would become constant if I was actually in danger of making contact. In other words, probably about that much space away. And that's it.